Hey trackies, welcome back to another video. Alright, so Athlos comes up on the 10th of October, which is on Friday. It's an all-female event, track and field event. They have 5 events on the track and 1 in the field, right? So yeah, that's what comes up on Friday. So it will pretty much round out the action for 2025. Now I know it's probably not on many people's calendars, given I don't think it's probably taken as seriously. Kind of gives me kind of gimmicky vibes. Again, it's all female. That's the first thing that is a turn off. I'm not against seeing men compete. You know what I mean? I think they go hand in hand. I want to see the females, plus I want to see the males, plus I want both athletes to be paid well. I want the men to be paid well. I want the females to be paid well as well, right? But let's see how it progresses from here on. No, as I said, I don't get the vibe where it's taken very seriously. It feels more gimmicky, but hey, it's entertainment, it's sport, we're here for it, right? So let's dive into the lineups, and yeah, let's talk about how we think it may go down on Friday. So let's start with the women's 800 meters. We have representing there Natoya Gould from Jamaica, so we're looking forward to seeing what she'll be able to do. But she has some heavy hitters in the race. So she has Keely Hodgkinson, the Olympic champion. Georgia Hunter Bell actually won the silver medal at the World Championships in the women's 800 meters, and Keely was third behind her, right? And then as well, Mary Mora is in the race as well, and she's from Kenya. And then as well, Nakai from Uganda is also in the race. So 2 world champions are in the race, as well as Keely Hodgkinson, the Olympic champion, and Georgia Hunter Bell, recent medalist at the World Championships. So yeah, this is a really, really stacked women's 800 meters. Now, I didn't go back to look at what happened in 2024 as it relates to the amount of athletes in each event. I'm realizing that it's 6. It's probably a thing, right? So, with that being said, I think this is going to be a really tough race for Natalia. I did think watching her at the World Championships that she was in great shape. I watched her heat race. She looked really, really good. The semifinal, I think she missed it tactically, right? And I think that is why she didn't progress to the finals, because she didn't run a tactically smart race, in my opinion, right? So it's a one-off race, right? I'm hoping that she'll be a bit more tactical in how she strategizes, how she will be, doing her effort in this women's 800 meters. But as I said, it's going to be tough, right? Keely Hodgkinson, to me, went into this season, she opened her season pretty late, but the moment she opened it, she was banging out, ridiculously fast times. I mean, 1 minute 54 times, right? So she looks like the heavy favorite heading into the World Championships, but she didn't win. Surprisingly, in that women's 800 meters, walking away with the win was Lilian Odira, right, from Kenya. She ran a championships record, to take that win. And of course, Keely, as I said, didn't even end up second. She ended up being third behind her countrywoman, Georgia Hunter Bell. That's also going to be competing here, at Athlos, right? And I think it's going to be a really, really interesting matchup between them both. Now, Keely still has the faster PB, right? I believe she has a PB of 1 minute 54.72 seconds, while, Georgia Hunter Bell, sorry, 1 minute 54.90. Not much difference. Not a big gap in terms of these athletes and their personal best. But I think it will come down to strategy again and how the race is run. Now, interestingly, right, Mary Mora is also in this race in Athlos. And if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering how that race, went in, Tokyo, she took the pace out. And Keely went with that pace. And I think that Keely got, thrown out of her race pattern because she went with what Mary Mora was doing. Of course, Mary Mora paid for that in the end. So did Keely Hodgkinson. Keely Hodgkinson still managed to be a part of the medal podium, but Mary Mora was down in 7th. You know what I mean? So looking at what's happening at Athlos and thinking about, the athletes that are competing, we have, as I said, Nakia, we have Mary Mora, right? Mary Mora is going to take out the pace. It's going to be important that these athletes don't try to go with her, crazy 400-meter early pace, right? If they do that and successfully do that, then possibly it comes down to Keely probably still winning with Georgia Hunter Bell, in for second, right? But again, if Georgia Hunter Bell is on one of those, hey, guess what? I'm actually as good as Akili, then she could, possibly trump her in this race as well. But I think it's going to come down to the Brits. Let's see who takes the win here. As I said, I do think that Natalia is in good shape. Well, it's been a minute since world championships, and I'm not really sure how the athletes have been training since then, so that's also going to be a factor. If they're black, who cares? Where I'm just going to go there to collect the little money and come home, you know what I mean? So let's see, but I do hope that she can be competitive in this race. If she can be as competitive as I'm hoping that she can, I think that she can possibly find herself, probably around 30th, 4th in this race if I'm not being too crazy, and overestimating her. But I do think, she can, end well in this race, because I do think Mary Moore is going to take out the speed. I do think, the likes of Nakia, will be there. But I think that as long as Natalia Gould runs a pretty good race strategically, then she should place pretty well in this women's 800 meters. Let's see how things goes. Strange things have happened, right? So we're gonna dive over into the women's 400 meters. Another interesting matchup from the medal podium athletes in this women's 400 meters. So we have Mary Lady Paulino in the lineup. She's the former world champion and current Olympic champion, as well as a silver medalist from the world championships that ended in Tokyo. We have Alexis Holmes, we have Amber Annin, we have the bronze medalist, interestingly, also a former world champion, Salwa Eid Nasa, in the lineup as well. Henrietta Yeager and also Lena Irby Jackson. I just think Lena Irby Jackson runs better, relay legs than she does run, individually. Interestingly, you have some people that are like that, but I think that she's going to be a strong, bid in this particular race. But I definitely think it comes down to Mary Lady Paulino and also Salwa Eid Nasser. Definitely think it comes down to them both. I think that, surprisingly, I didn't think that this would happen at the World Championships, but I shouldn't be surprised given what I saw happen at the Grand Slam, league with Paulino running those 200s. She looked really good over those 200s, right? And it really showed in her 200s, our first 200 in the finals of the 400 meters at the World Championships, where she was out, right? Out even better than Asalwa. Sydney was out as well. And I was surprised how, well they went out. I was thinking, is it the first 200 not as fast as I think it's supposed to be? You know what I mean? But, it was a crazy fast 400 meters, fastest 400 meters, I believe, in history when you take into consideration how top three, finished in that particular race. We're talking about Sydney, 47.78 championship record. Paulino, 47.98 national record, and a season's best was from Salwa, 48.19. So really, really crazy fast 400. This is a one-off race. I think I'm probably going to give it to Mary Lady Paulina, because she has unlocked, unlike, Salwa, where she's going to give you a fast 200, and sometimes she may get the last 200 right, sometimes she gets it wrong, right, where she fades and then she loses the ground, and then Marlady Paulino can overtake her. If Marlady Paulino attacks this the same way she attacked the race at the World Championships, then unfortunately she's gonna also have a good 200, and if she has a good final phase, which she does, then it's unlikely that Salwa will challenge her. But again, time has passed. We're not sure what the training is like with these athletes to keep themselves race ready or race sharp for these events. So let's see what happens. But if we're going off what we saw at the World Championships, and I'm going to say Mary Lady, then I'm going to say Salwa. I'm going to say Henrietta Yeager takes third in this race. She's looked good as well. I think Amber Annin will be challenging. I think it's between Henrietta Yeager and Amber Annin. Amber Annin gives me, and I don't know if this is a good or bad thing when I say this word, but it kind of gives me kind of slouchy. It looks like she's not running, but she's running. You know what I mean? So it's hard to really gauge her sometimes, or her effort sometimes. So, I think I'm still going to go with Henrietta. I'm going to say Amber Annin, and then I'm going to say Lena Irby Jackson, then I'm going to say Alexis Holmes. Let's see how it goes. Again, this is based on, the type of race fitness that these athletes are currently in. We're at the end of the season. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be as straightforward as maybe other races you would say. when the season is, still hot, right? Now, let's jump into the women's 100-meter hurdles. This one was probably the most surprising event that happened at the World Championships, where we had a number of athletes clearly pull out, but we had the Olympic champion not even get on the podium. We had the Jamaican Akira Nugent not even make it into the finals. It was a crazy, crazy women's 100-meter hurdles where I'm like, okay, child, we went from me predicting Jamaica walking away with 2 medals, with Jamaica getting nothing, literally a big fat zero. In the women's 100-meter hurdles. Crazy. But, this is another, really good women's 100-meter lineup, 100-meter hurdles lineup, that is. The women 100-meter hurdlers, they never really dodge them each other. They're there, they're ready to run. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen with this one. We have in it Grace Stark. She's a medalist from the World Championships. She was actually third in the women's 100-meter hurdles. Good for her. Toby Amerson was second. And of course, Ditaji Kambunji won. So shocking the world, I would say. Well, not really surprising given, her history. But yeah, still a shot nonetheless, right? Masai was fourth in that race, right? So we have Masai Russell that is in the lineup. Devin Charlton, she was also a finalist in the lineup as well. Alicia Johnson is there, Tonya Marshall is there, and Megan Tapper will be representing. Now, she unfortunately had to pull out of the World Championships, and it's interesting because when I think about what went down at the World Championships and the shape she was in leading in, I was like, oh my God, if Megan was there, if Megan lined up, so Megan could have did win the whole thing. Anyhow, Megan had lined up in that women's 100-meter hurdles. I don't care what anybody says. Given, as I said, how things panned out, right? Athletes not looking as good as we thought they would look. Masai didn't look as good as I thought she would look. Akira didn't look as good as I thought she would look, right? And yeah, Megan could have got into that race and snuffed everybody. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Life happens. As I said, sometimes life is cruel. You know what I mean? When I think about the women and the hurdles, and of course Jamaica and the hurdles in general, Megan pulling out, Rashid Broadwell. This was supposed to be his year as well in the men's 110-meter hurdles, and injury, struck as well. So crazy, crazy when it comes to the hurdles. But that being said, I think this is going to be a good race. I think Masai probably has a chip on her shoulder. I think Grace Stark is back, are close enough to where she was when she was dominating on the circuit earlier on in the year. So I think it's going to be a race between Masai and Grace. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Actually, Tonya, I'm going to throw Tonya in it as well. I think Tonya, it's a one-off race. Tonya can have a good one-off race. I think when it comes to rounds, she messes up, but I think she can have a good one-off race. I think I'm going to throw Tonya in. Now, Megan, I would have had Megan, place high in this race, if she wasn't coming off an injury. She's coming off an injury. I don't know what that looks like. So it's hard for me to place her above everybody else, when she's coming off an injury. I'm hoping that she is very competitive, you know what I mean, and she comes in and she does her big one. But, coming off an injury, I'm not going to just put her over randomly over the likes of Masai, Grace Stark, Tonya. You know what I mean? So let's see what happens with Megan. I'm not going to place her in this race because I'm not really sure how she comes in. But I do think the likes of Masai, Grace, and Tonya will be challenging each other for, those top three positions. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes.